Hello, Junior Forest Rangers. My name is Joel Bartlett with the Alabama Forestry Commission. I'm a forestry specialist and a wildland firefighter. I've been working with the Forestry Commission for over 20 years. And in those 20 years, I've learned a few things about wildland fire and how it helps us here in the state of Alabama and how it can also harm us. Fire's got to have three things to survive: oxygen, heat, and fuel. At any time, if you take away these three things, the fire will go out. I want to show you a few of the techniques that we use as wildland firefighters here in the state of Alabama to put out these raging wildfires. Now, Alabama over the last year had over 800 wildfires. And out of those 800 wildfires, we had over 11,100 acres burned. 11,100 acres burned, that's a lot of acres that we've lost in timber that we use for production and different things for here for our people for the state of Alabama. Now, we have to have protective gear to go and fight these fires. We're on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And in order for us to be prepared to go and fight these fires, we had to have personal protective equipment, PPE. And our PPE, as John Wesley has on and myself, there are yellow and greens. Also, we would have our hard hats to protect our heads from anything that could fall, limbs, sticks, even embers, and also our gloves. Now, our PPE that we're wearing, our yellows and greens that is, they are fire resistant. They're not fireproof. If fire ever stays on them long enough, it will break down the chemical inside of these PPE and they will eventually burn. Fortunately, here for the wildland firefighters of Alabama, we're not directly impacted and close to a fire, such as a structural firefighter inside of a house. Our PPE is designed especially for us. It's lightweight. Our boots are leather with thick soles so we can walk on the hard and hot ground. We have gloves, full leather gloves, to protect our hands from when we're using hand tools and also when we're operating our dozers. Now, our dozers put out about 90% of our fires here in Alabama. Two ways that we do that is what we're standing on right here is what we call a fire lane. By using the blade of the dozer, we can remove the fuel away from the fire. Now, if you remember, fire's got to have three things to live. Fuel is one of them. So if we can remove the fuel, meaning the leaves, the pine straw, anything on the forest floor that causes the fire to move, we can put out a fire. Also, behind our dozer, we have the fire plow. Our fire plow is pulled behind the dozer and it opens up the earth about 3 feet wide, about 1.5 feet in the ground, down to that bare mineral dirt. Dirt will not burn, and it also removes the fuel away from the fire. Now, fire has to have oxygen, heat, and fuel, as we discussed. And these tools are specialized in treating and putting out the forest fires that we have, such as our shovel. Now, our shovel, we can shovel dirt and use it to throw on the fire to smother the fire and to remove the oxygen from it. We also have our rogue hoe, which is used for digging, cutting also. Our Pulaski, which is an axe and a digger on the other end, so we can chop little small trees and we can also dig fire line. And our rake has sharp pointed edges and sides so we can rake through and remove that fuel away from the fire. We also have a combi tool, which is a multi-tool. Our combi tool comes with a shovel, also a pick. It is set in place, and we can use it to dig, and we can use the pick around rocks to bring out fuel around the rocks and different things around stumps where the fire is burning. The McLeod. The McLeod is used as a digger on one end, where we can dig into the ground, and also it has a rake on the other end. And John Wesley is going to be demonstrating now our fire flap. What I have in my hand now is called a drip torch. A drip torch is used by a certified wildland firefighter to start fires, prescribe fires, and to use to help fight a wildfire. Let me explain that. A drip torch has got 60% gasoline, or 60% diesel, 40% gasoline. In order to fight a fire with a fire, we usually have to have a fire break, kind of what we have here. And if we had a fire at the bottom of the hill coming up towards us, we would light fire along the fire break, burning out all the material in between the main fire, the head fire at the bottom of the hill, and in between the top of the hill at our fire lane. What that does, it removes all the material in between, so the fire cannot burn anymore. And that's how we can use fire to fight fire. Now our drip torch, John Wesley is going to demonstrate one of our final tools. It's one of our favorites with the volunteer fire departments here in Alabama, and it's a fire flap. It's made of rubber, and the object of using a fire flap is just exactly what John Wesley is doing here, is flapping the fire out. He can't use too much force on it because it would fan the flames and push the fire a little bit further. Now, as I said before, we have used two or three different methods of putting out the fire. We've removed the fuel and we suppressed it by using a fire flap to deprive the fire of oxygen, just like I'm doing so. Also, we can use water apparatuses in the back of our trucks and on our UTVs to spray the fires out with water. At the Alabama Forestry Commission, over the last few years, we have sent several firefighters out west to fight raging wildfires in California, Oregon, Washington, and different western states. Where it's not feasible to use a dozer, handline has to be built. A lot of times, these are done with specialized tools that we just went over, such as the fire rake that John Wesley has with him. John Wesley, would you please demonstrate how we remove a fire from the fire, or remove fuel from a fire lane? Normally, this would be done with at least a 20-man crew, and the purpose of this is to remove all the fuel away from the fire that is approaching the fire line. We want to rake away from the fire, keeping a nice clean line down the fire lane so none of the fuel will catch up on the sides. At different times in our career, we have been able to go out west to fight wildland fires. And in order to do so, and we also carry these here in the state of Alabama, and John Wesley, if you would come, is our wildland fire pack. If you don't mind turning around, thank you, sir. Our wildland fire pack is full of gear such as water canteens, first aid kits, extra socks, extra change of clothes, lunches, food. We have some backfiring fuel also in a mini torch just like this one. So if we need to start a fire, to fight a fire, we can out on the fire line. But the one biggest piece of equipment for this lies right here. That would be our wildland fire shelter. This is a firefighter's last line of defense in case a fire overtakes them, whether it be on a dozer or if we're on the ground walking around. This is made of aluminum and a thin coat of silica inside, and when it's put together, it causes an air pocket. And it looks like just basically a small little pup tent that the firefighter can crawl inside, and the fire will actually, the radiant heat of the fire is reflected off of this shelter. Now, in order to deploy a shelter, you'd need a very nice cleaned out area such as this with low fuel availability. Too much fuel can actually burn the fire shelter up. So we want to make sure we have an open field with real small, low grass, where we can actually take our dozers and push out dirt places so we can get in, kind of like this fire lane right here. But this is our last line of defense to save ourselves and our fellow firefighters. Thank you for joining us today, and remember, only you can prevent forest fires.